Hello and welcome to Chadify. Today we'll be analyzing, rating, Looksmaxxing, and Chadifying 3 new individuals who purchased my face analysis, Looksmaxxing suggestions, and Chadification gig off my website, Chadify.me. I would like to thank each of these 3 individuals for allowing me to showcase the results here and to support the channel, Chadify. Chadify.me has a main gig that I put in the link in the description. So this is what's included: a face rating out of 10 with detailed analysis, Looksmaxxing suggestions, and 1 Chadification, as well as a morph video. I also have add-ons, and these add-ons include the ability to add more chatified images. This is a very popular one. If you want a side profile, an angle shot, or a smiling shot done as well, you can add more for a small cost. On the other hand, we have a quick delivery method. This allows you to get your order done within 24 hours. This is also quite popular. You could technically buy chatified images on their own. However, the quick delivery method here has to be used in conjunction with another product. Onto the video. The purpose of Chadify is to help others. I will be employing a mathematical rating criterion that I developed. On to face number 1, guys. He's 20 years of age, 177 pounds at 5'10". Here is the side view of his face, and here's a smiling shot with his lips, as well as with his teeth. On to his best features in order of importance. First of all, face number 1 has a straightforward grown mandible, which is apparent in every single angle of his face. Excellent. Secondly, he has no hyoid fat or sag, and he's facially lean. Thirdly, face number 1 has a lengthy ramus where the gonian undercuts the mouth substantially, and he has an excellent smile with clear as day dimples. I may have not said this in the past, but dimples are an excellent additive feature, but it's not necessary by any stretch of the imagination. Fifthly, face number 1 has almond eye shape with compact orbitals and good eye width. I would say that his almond eye shape and good width are very much apparent, and his orbitals, they're compact, but they're not quite at that very optimal state, hence why it's kind of just added in with this whole grouping. He also has a compact mid-face of exactly 1:1, a decently wide mid-face of 1.73:1. Face number 1 also has an ideal eye spacing of 100% of one eye width apart according to the percentage, as well as an ES ratio of 0.48, which is very much within the optimal window. Face number 1 also has an ideal gonial angle of 120 degrees. He's positive canthal tilt with a downward pointing medial canthus of the eye. Face number 1 also has hollow cheekbones, which are absolutely excellent and something to strive for many people. He also has blue eyes, and all these 3 photos look very good. And additionally, face number 1 is young at only 20 years of age. Facial flaws in order of importance. Face number 1. First of all, he has thin, light eyebrows, which is a very common occurrence for people with orange hair. Secondly, face number 1 has a very long philtrum relative to his very short chin of 1.5:1, hence why his face looks a little bit more square than ideal. He also has a very strong narrowing lower third, which is apparent in these descriptions. Ideally, it should be much closer to the green line here. Fourthly, he has a thin neck relative to his very thick lower third. Despite him being 177 pounds, he actually told me that he didn't know about neck training. And that is a great thing to note here, because it is obvious that his neck is thin and it could use a lot more size because of this pronounced gonian region here. Face number 1 also has average chin projection, and he has an undefined vermilion border of his lip. Something I've never spoke about before is that you want your vermilion border to be somewhat prominent and noticeable. For face number 1, there's a bit of redness above it in some of the photos. It's very apparent that it is not as defined as ideal. And face number 1 has a slightly thin chin relative to his massive gonian region. I mean, the amount of excessiveness here of thickness is excellent. Unfortunately, the chin kind of suffers as a result. And face number 1 has an undersized nose. This is a very rare thing, but because of his wide face in general, his nose does appear a little bit too small. Furthermore, face number 1 has hollowing of his infraorbital region. This means that underneath his eye area, and even somewhat in here, he is suffering from a hollowing of the bones. The structure of his maxilla is not quite developed enough to support his eye area, and unfortunately this can degrade over time. Finally, face number 1 has a very narrow Cupid's bow, which is not nearly at the optimal 2:1 range. Guess face number 1's rating, guys. We got the blend masculinity pretty boy boys scale here, 6 out of 10 attractiveness. I mean, it's obvious this guy's a high tier normie at the minimum. In some ways, you could even make the argument that he's even higher than this rating. Looksmaxxing advice, face number 1. First of all, gym, gain muscle, lose fat. Ultimately, face number 1 is already doing this to a high degree, so we don't need to kind of go over it too much, but I would say an overhead press specialty program would be ideal because it would bring up his upper body region, which does seem to lack relative to his gonian. On top of this, doing a lot of neck training would be absolutely beneficial for him because it simply does look too thin relative to his face width. Secondly, castor oil, darkening and thickening his brows is actually so important considering that they're quite light. Thirdly, face number 1 should focus on his sleep hygiene, aiming for a consistent 8 hours simply because he's already predisposed to hollowing of his infraorbital region due to not enough maxillary structure underneath his eye. So being on top of this, just to mitigate it as much as possible, is a good idea. And then fourthly, pale skin requires UV protection. Face number 1 absolutely should be using a very regimented skincare. And finally, I think a hairstyle revamp of some sort would be ideal. Although it looks good in his front 2 photos here, I would say from the side, you can tell that his buzz or short hairstyle here just doesn't look that great with the side profile. He could get a fade, but I don't think that's ideal with the narrowing lower third. I think that this guy needs slightly longer hair or a mullet. Time to Chadify. Face number 1. With unlimited budget comes unlimited possibilities. Let's take him up to the A+ level of attractiveness. Wow. Okay. Look at his face. I mean, as we replay this flow diagram here, you're seeing so many minimal things changing here, and it does look quite attainable for him, as well as a slight tan, which could be, employed by spray tanning or whatever. Face number 1 is looking incredible. Here's a zoomed in version so we can really focus on his face. You can see his hair thickening up, his eyebrows darkened, a bit of a tan, thicker neck. We got the side profile Chadification. You can really see how his hair ends up. Wow. That hairstyle is actually so nice, guys. I love it, honestly. Excellent. I do have new services which are available. The first one being a full private video. I've done this a couple times in the past. For those who want a very in-depth analysis and have a much higher budget, it is available. The second new service is a sketch of your chatified self. It can be bought in conjunction with other things, or it can be bought on its own. It is interesting to see yourself chatified, but in an art format where you post it online or do whatever with it is pretty cool in my opinion. And I do have a knack for art, so perhaps the value of this one is less practical and a bit more tailored towards that artistic side. You will also get a morph video of the sketch taking place, which is absolutely interesting within its own right. Face number 2, 27 years old at 192 pounds at 6'1". This guy looks built. Here's a close shot of his face, a smiling shot. I believe this is the left side of his face, angle of the left, the right side angle. Best features in order of importance. Face number 2. Let's do it. First of all, he has a positive eyebrow tilt, and although it's covered up by the infographic right now, I would say that his eyebrows are actually quite a strong point for him, despite them not being that dark. They simply look very nice. Secondly, he's a short eye-eyebrow distance, and thirdly, he's an ideal gonial angle of 110 degrees. He has an ideal chin-philtrum ratio of 2.25 to 1, excluding his beard, and including it at 2.65 to 1, which is a little bit outside of the optimal window, meaning that if he beard maxes it slightly, he can end up right in the middle territory, which is ideal. Fifthly, face number 2 has thick, luscious hair, and he has a prominent brow ridge, which is apparent in all of the photos. Face number 2 also has a thick neck, and he has a great eye width of 3.1 to 1. And finally, face number 2 has relatively equal thirds of his jaw. Facial flaws in order of importance. Face number 2. First of all, face number 2 has a lot of hyoid fat, and he is at a higher body fat percentage right now, so that is partly attributing to this situation. His beard might also be to blame, because you can see it was a little bit too much there. And he has a round mandible, which is also due to his hyoid area. He's moderate upper eyelid exposure, and some asymmetries in his amounts of it. His right side here is a little bit higher in quantity of upper eyelid exposure versus his left. Fourthly, he has a long mid-face of 1.1 to 1, and he has an average ramus length where his gonian lacks definition. He also has thin asymmetric lips, which is also leading back in to his long mid-face. If he had a larger upper lip, his ratio would be more ideal. And finally, face number 2 has rounder cheeks than ideal. Guess face number 2's rating, guys. At the blend masculinity scale, boom. 5 out of 10 attractiveness with a tilt towards the masculine area of about 1/4 of a point. So you can see that he definitely is a more masculine guy, and this area he's scoring a lot better than the prettier area. Looksmaxxing advice, face number 2. First of all, Jim, lose fat. So this guy already has a solid base. If we showcase it better from losing fat and getting to a lower body fat percentage, his face is gonna look amazing. There simply is a lot of size everywhere on him. He just doesn't have it optimized just yet. Secondly, beard maxing. Refer to my Chadification. We'll go into this afterwards. The idea is that his chin area is just kind of scruffy. It's a little bit thin in the cheek areas, and then underneath his neck area just doesn't need that hair. It can be removed. So we'll be squaring that off later. Thirdly, castor oil. Let's darken this strong point of your eyebrows more. Fourthly, skincare regimen. There's minor blemishes on your face, like some acne here, but very minor. If we can use maybe some tretinoin and retinol creams, using some hyaluronic acid and different things, you could definitely improve the appearance here. Next, lip augmentation. So I would say in your case, simply put, you have such a thin upper lip that lip fillers would look very good in your circumstance. Simply put, because you have a longer mid-face as well as thin lips. So it's just so many reasons for you to investigate that one. And then finally, mewing. Although you are older and it might have a limited effect because of that, I still think mewing would be a great idea because you're longer mid-face and thinner lips. Time to Chadify face number 2. Let's do it. Boom. So you can see on the replays, this guy is a more masculine guy. In fact, he's basically peeking out a little bit above the 8 territory from a more masculine lens. It's just simply the way that the ratios work. He has the base for it. So if he can just get his beard thickened up a bit more and squared off perfectly, as well as cutting down, getting his eyebrows darker. I mean, and look at the lips too. You're just seeing a guy transform, literally. Here's the full body version here. Again, you know, just look at how everything gets structured more, and yet he just looks very handsome for a more masculine guy. Face number 3, 26 years of age at 150 pounds at 5'4". He might be one of the shortest guys we've rated so far. Here's a side view profile, a smiling shot. Best features in order of importance. Face number 3, let's do it. First of all, he has thick, luscious hair, despite a very odd hairstyle. Fortunately and unfortunately, this hair has a lot of potential, but does not look great currently. Secondly, face number 3 has dark, thick eyebrows and eyelashes. You hit that one home. Thirdly, an ideal gonial angle of 115 degrees. Excellent. Fourthly, face number 3 has a lengthy ramus where the gonian undercuts the mouth like crazy, almost excessively. Face number 3 has full lips, and he has short eyebrow distance. Face number 3 also has tanned, very clear skin. You could say that there maybe is a blemish here or there, but to be honest, it looks very smooth and nice in my opinion. Additionally, face number 3 has a thick neck, and he has a wide mid-face of 1.8 to 1. He has positive eyebrow tilt, and he has a defined Cupid's bow, as well as a prominent brow ridge. And finally, face number 3 has very deep set eyes. Obviously, his side profile is ever so slightly on an angle, and as a result of that, it's enhancing this feature, hence why it's placed a little bit lower on importance, but he still hits it home pretty well. Facial flaws in order of importance. Face number 3. First of all, he's an underbite and a crossbite. This is a situation which drastically and negatively impacts facial ratings. Unfortunately, it is literally a deformity, but it is something that can be fixed. One thing to note is that he luckily doesn't have too much distortion of his axis of symmetry here. It's just his lower third, which tells me that his maxillary development hasn't been asymmetric due to his crossbite. This means that once fixed, his face could look very much aesthetic. Secondly, face number 3 has an overly compact mid-face of 0.92 to 1, and he has a rounded off gonian. Although it is long and it undercuts his mouth quite a bit, it doesn't have that angular sharp appearance that it ideally should have. And this could be partly attributed due to his underbite and crossbite kind of bringing it forward. Fourthly, he has droopy upper eyelid exposure. It's not like he has high upper eyelid exposure. It's more the fact that it peaks up in this area, but then droops down. Gives an old and tired appearance. Next, he has high facial fat percentage and hyoid fat. Face number 3 has an oversized nose, and additionally, he has slightly yellowed teeth. Another thing to note is that his mustache ages his appearance significantly, and he has excessive chin and mandible projection completely related to his underbite situation. Additionally, face number 3 has asymmetric thirds of his jaw is purely due to his crossbite, so he has a smaller third here. And finally, face number 3 has a slightly long filtrum of 2.05 to 1. Guess face number 3's rating, guys. 3, 2, 1. 4 out of 10 attractiveness. So he's definitely quite a bit below average. Is he a 3? I don't think so. Even though he has some problems, there are some strong points. One thing to note as well is that I didn't add a black hole pointer here. Why didn't I do this? Well, he's infinitesimally more attractive from the pretty side. I know it's hard to see right now, but as we chatify him, you'll see because of his very soft skin and all these other regions, he's just slightly more pretty than masculine, but so small, it barely registers on our scale. Looksmaxxing advice, orthodontics, let's straighten up your teeth. You're going to need braces when you correct from a class 3 bite to a class 1, as well as correcting from a cross bite. Even though they look kind of straight here, there's definitely some issues, so we got to move everything, and this is going to have a massive impact on your attractiveness. It could very well bring you from a 4 to a 6. Next, losing fat. The truth is, you're at a higher body fat percentage. If we can lighten you down, we can get that hollow cheekbone effect, it will have a massive impact on your attractiveness. Thirdly, improving your haircut. You have great thickness, you have great colors for that tan. I don't know if it's natural or dyed, but it looks excellent. The dilemma is this haircut is absolutely like a nest of some sort. Next, removing your mustache. It simply ages your appearance and gives off a bit of a creepy appearance. Additionally, teeth whitening. Luckily, because of your tan, your teeth don't look that yellowed, but if you were paler, they would definitely be quite apparent. That is quite close to the tone of the wood behind them. Getting them whiter is ideal. And then surgical processes. On top of all this, like a rhinoplasty, there could be some other things as well that are implemented alongside the orthodontics in order to get you to your chatified self. Time to chatify. Face number 3. Let's do it. Wow, what a transformation across the map. You're seeing such a shift. I don't think we've had any 4s on here recently, so you're really seeing how much of a change that is. Now, obviously, he might not get all the way here. And you can still see that I preserved a slight asymmetry of his chin, and we got the zoomed in version, getting rid of that nest. Really attractive guy. He almost looks like he's Greek or Indian, some sort of mixture between the two. And then you can see his smile chatification and how his bite is aligning a bit better, his hair coming out, and he just is a good looking guy now. And then we got the side-by-side 3 people chatifications here, and you could really see that the biggest changes are obviously on the right-hand guy, face number 3, and then the moderate changes on face number 2, and then the minor changes being on face number 1, simply put, because he's so attractive to begin with. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment and like, as it helps the YouTube algorithm. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you guys next time.